My name is Pankaj Kushani, and I look after the Google Geo products for Asia. Before I start, let me ask you a question. How many of you have used Google Maps? How many of you have used Google Earth? All right, so I don't see even a single hand which is down, so that's great. So let me go back maybe 500 years. Map have always been into existence. You know, during medieval times to even sailors. Even if I go 20 years back, a lot of people were actually using GIS, and it's only, at Google we have seen, it's only in last 7, 8 years we have seen that maps have completely transformed the way people think. The way people are using maps today, they're using it in every form and fashion. In fact, mostly we're seeing a huge amount of upside. Like all of you said, yes, you're using Google Maps. So they're using, now maps are integrated into social networks, whether you talk about Facebook. There are exclusive applications like Foursquare, Gawala, who are just, the whole concept is around location. You have traffic-based applications. You have store locators. You have various other consumer applications. So if you see the shift that has happened in last 5 years or 6 years, and it has been completely mind-boggling and amazing. So it's clearly one of the big, heavy areas where Google is also investing in. You guys must have read a couple of months back the news around Google acquiring Waze for $1 billion. So that's clearly we at Google are seeing there's a huge, huge amount of potential in location, and that's what we are experiencing in market, and we are continuing to build really amazing products. This is another important statistic. 55% of the traffic which comes on Google Maps actually comes from different websites or different applications. So people, it's only 45% of the people who go on maps.google.com to access maps, whereas the rest of the traffic comes from these million-plus business applications or different websites where people log onto a particular website and see, maps. So that, again, another important point that maps are clearly getting more and more important and relevant, not just in the consumer space, but also in the business space. I assume almost all of you use Facebook, but the second heaviest used application globally is Google Maps. Another shift which we have seen in the last 12 to 15 months is the amount of traffic which is coming from mobile is now exceeding that coming from desktop. So that means more and more users are accessing Google Maps over mobile. So that's another trend which I believe in the IT space also you're noticing that about 30% today of your employees access work-related applications over mobile phones. This is expected to go up to 64% in certain markets. But clearly, this is what's happening. Mobile is getting more and more important, and there are different applications, including location-based applications, which are being built on the mobile phone. So while that's on the consumer space, what's there from a business or an enterprise? What's Google Maps or Google Earth has to do in the enterprise space? So before I talk about it, how many of you are using GIS-based applications? Any of you? Maybe 1, 2? Okay, I can see about 5, 10 hands. So this is a big difference where most of the times the innovations actually come from the enterprise space and then move on to the consumer space. Whereas what we are seeing at Google now is that innovation on maps happened in the consumer space, and that's what Google has done, and now we are bringing it in the enterprise space. So we have certain tools and products, clearly we have about 35,000 enterprise customers who are paying to use Google Maps, and I'm going to walk you through certain use cases on really amazing and cool applications and use cases which have been built around Google Maps. One of the big transformational things which I'm personally seeing, I've traveled to so many different countries in Asia, meet up with various people like yourselves and CXOs. So one of the important thing which is coming, or important trend which I'm seeing everywhere is the concept of a war room or a control room or a boardroom. So I was in Indonesia a few months back and walked into one of the large business houses. And so one of the chairmen of that billion-dollar company, his whole backdrop, he had a 3 by 7 meter screen. The whole backdrop was maps. So what he was doing was he was inviting bankers, investors, his own CEOs of his different companies to show them how and where his business is happening. Governments have big rooms where they're seeing, they're building up these control room concepts in different departments. It could be Army, it could be Navy, it could be Police Department, it could be during a time of floods where they're setting up control rooms and the backdrop is maps. There are various telecom companies, various banking companies. Like banking companies are saying, hey, where are we seeing maximum fraud happening? Logistics companies are seeing where are my warehouses, where are all my assets located. So this whole concept around visualization, it's a very popular saying, a picture is 1,000 words, whereas a map is 1,000 pictures. So it's extremely powerful once you put all the data you have onto a map, and the various critical decisions, whether internal or external, can be used by using mapping platforms. So what can you do with maps? There are hundreds and thousands of different use cases, paying use cases where organizations like yourselves have built. They span across route planning for a sales force, or for a sales force. A lot of FMCG, banking, and telcos have thousands of people who are on the field selling a lot of consumer-based products. There are a lot of logistics companies who use it to determine the traffic. There are a lot of agriculture companies who have a lot of data, they put it on the map, and they want to measure by hectare how much yield is happening, whether it's an oil plantation or it's any other form of plantation. Various government agencies for urban planning. Defense departments in wartime or terrorism, it's increasingly getting used. Another important use cases where it's actually important, and I'm going to show you one of the use case, is during emergency or search and rescue. The power of mapping platform, comes into effect when you're saving lives. So there are various use cases, and as I said, there are almost 35,000 enterprises like yourself who are using this mapping platform and either making a lot of money or saving a lot of OpEx. So I'm going to walk you through about 6 use cases, and Richard is going to show you some real-time demos. So before I talk about them, how it really works is you have Google Maps as a base map. You get a third-party data. Let me pick example of a bank. Now, bank has a lot of data. You're setting up a new ATM or you're setting up a new branch. So what you do is you get a demographic data. Okay, how many people are between 18 to 35, what's the income, and so on. So you buy this third-party data, or you already have this data. You put it on Google Maps. Next, you bring in your data. Now, your data could be, where are my existing bank branches? Where are my existing ATMs? Where are the competition stores located? Now, how do I put them together and decide where to open up a new branch or a new ATM? The next you do is around the imagery. Now, imagery can be around satellite imagery or aerial imagery, which is mainly around the government and the defense, or various construction companies have their own satellite imagery where you're seeing, okay, how is that part? For example, Bangkok, how has Bangkok grown over the last 3 years? How many new buildings have come up? Or if I'm designing a new town, what should I do? So you can overlay imagery also. Then you add on your assets. Assets could be human assets or any other assets. Could be a cab to a motorbike to any movable or immovable. In an FMCG company, it could be a dispenser of soft drinks. You can put all this data on Google Maps and build unique applications which are very specific to your enterprise. And one of the reasons why Google Maps has been so successful, I talked about, is there are a million different applications which have been created using Google Maps. And the reason for that is the APIs which our engineers have built at Google, they are extremely simple. With no offense to the GIS people in this room, GIS applications, one of the reasons why mapping platform couldn't really do well in so many, I would say until about 2005, was it's a very, very specialized, very, very unique, and very, very skill-centric software. So there were not many applications. In a true sense, it wasn't democratized. So that's what Google did. We built such simple APIs that you get any good Java developer, they can write different applications using Google Maps. And the beauty is, it works across devices. Like, you don't have to write 10 different applications or the same application 10 times for different devices. So once you write an application, it'll work across your desktop, your smart device, or your tablet. So now I'm going to quickly walk you through certain customer case studies. They have been really revolutionizing, and it's the visionaries, the customers who had, and a lot of them were actually visionaries who built such amazing use cases. So one such use case is, last year we acquired a company called as Motorola for $12 billion. Now Google is known to provide a lot of benefits to its employees. It's really a great place to work for, and I'm so glad to be there. So one of the big benefits we have is we are provided with shuttle services to our work location and back. So Motorola was a Chicago-based company. We had 12,000 employees who were based out of Chicago. So we had addresses of all these 12,000 employees, and it would have taken us months to figure out how to add on more buses, where to place the bus stops, where to have the pickup locations, and it was a big ask. So one of the smart engineers, what he did was, there was this discussion going on with the HR that how do we really solve this particular problem. So he said, hey, it's extremely simple. It happened on a coffee discussion, I would say. He was sitting in cafeteria. So he said, give me a few hours. I'll build this application for you. So what he did was, he plotted all the 12,000 addresses on the map. So we have a feature called as a Geocoding Api, which takes all the addresses, plots all the addresses on the maps. And by doing this, all the dots you can see are actually customer locations. Not customer, sorry, employee locations. And the green and the blue small icons you see are the bus stops. So within few hours, he could build an application which helped designing the complete route for all the 12,000 employees. So that's the power of these tools. Imagine otherwise you would have gone through the entire spreadsheet and figured out. So this is one internal use case, very real, which we are using at Google. The second, there is a company called as Ergon Energy. It's a utilities, electricity company based out of Queensland in Australia. One of the big challenges they had, they were spending $500 million around vegetation management. When I say vegetation management, what is happening was, it's a large state. There were a lot of trees which were growing, and what used to happen was trees used to outgrow the electricity poles, and they used to disrupt the wires. So as the tree is growing, they're cutting off the wires, and it was leading to blackouts. It was leading to huge revenue losses. And just to manage that, they had hundreds and hundreds of people who were actually going in the forest and seeing how much is this tree grown, and they were doing a predictive analysis. So what then they did was, they said, it's really not a scalable way. So Google stepped in. We said, hey, why don't you get all the satellite imagery? We'll give you our mapping platform. You put all your imagery onto our platform, and through that, you can do predictive modeling around when will tree outgrow the electricity pole. So with that alone, in 1 year, they managed to reduce their expenses from $500 million to $440 million. That's a big, big $60 million saving I'm talking about. This is one of my favorites. It's a startup based out of New York There's a company called as City 24/7. So how many of you have used phone booth by putting coins in last 2 years or 5 years? Has anyone used a public phone booth? Anyone? Last 5 years? No? So you can imagine what was happening to these phone booths in Manhattan, where real estate is so expensive, but they just couldn't take it off. And it was certainly not a great thing for the government because they were not making any money and that real estate was going waste. So there were these bunch of two or three guys who said, okay, they walked up to the municipal corporation, they said, we'll turn it profitable. So what they did was, they revamped these phone booths, put up smart display screens, and created a use case around hyper-local environment. That is, which is a new party in the club tonight, which is the best Italian restaurant, and so on. So they were providing hyper-local information about Manhattan in these phone booths, and they turned it profitable. So it was a win-win situation for the government as well as for them. So this was an additional revenue stream. The whole company is based around location and maps. This is another example. This is, again, a traditional water utilities company based out of UK. They have been doing water supply for the last 70, 80 years, and their infrastructure around the water pipelines had grown quite old. So similar like Ergon Energy, they were spending millions and millions of dollars in maintaining all these pipelines. So they didn't have a great workforce management solution, and so that's so what they did was they used Google Maps coordinate. My colleague Richard is going to talk about it, which is the first time Google has built an end-to-end product, including the application. Google Maps coordinate is a great tool for workforce optimization. By using that, they got 5 times investment back. That was within, I think, 6 months from the time they started using it. So they in fact made more money than they spend on us. The other example is this is a very known company, DHL around logistics. They once again implemented maps. So what they did was they plotted all their courier locations, they plotted all their workforce, they were seeing how much delivery is happening where, how much pickup is happening where, and they gathered all this information, published it on the map. They also built a store locator wherein, okay, which is the closest DHL center near my house, till what time is it open, if I want a 24-hour, can I, within 2 kilometers, so the case was within 2 kilometers, show me a DHL courier center which is open 24 hours and they accept a freight of 5 kilos and more. So you can do all these geofencing based queries using maps. The next use case is, oops, sorry. I think I'm talking good about them, so I'm not sure what happened. Intercontinental Hotel Group. The traffic on their website increased by 35% moment they started using maps, the moment they integrated maps onto their website. 35% traffic increase obviously resulted in much more number of bookings. What they've also done is they've integrated Street View. It helps you give all the information around the hotel and the popular points of interest and so on. The next use case is very personal to me. It's about Red Cross. I'll leave you for 2 minutes, make you watch a video, and then talk about it.
The Red Cross truly has humanitarian value in the community. When you have people in need and you have the ability to help them, simple things, a cup of coffee, being able to talk to them, help them ease their pain and get their story out. The 07 wildfires was a wake-up call.
I got to see firsthand what the devastation meant to people and the tragedy that people went through. The destruction was significant, and the number of people displaced was truly amazing.
We had trouble getting shelters up. We had trouble getting enough people in the right locations at the right time.
We were throwing all the resources at it, but Mother Nature is a tough enemy.
After the 07 wildfires, we said, what could have been done better? With the new command center and using Google Earth, Google Maps systems, all our resources are now in the cloud. I can pull it up on my smartphone or tablet. The majority of disasters is how to get the resources where they need to be, when they need to be there. And without Google Maps, you're doing it blindly. And one of the things that Laura works on is giving us a terrain map so we can see, given where the fire is burning, where we're going to have to go to create a safe shelter environment to evacuate.
Truly having that common operating picture that everybody can access. With Google Maps, everybody's seeing the same information at the same time. Our volunteers are using technology they already understand with no additional training, which allows them to do their jobs much better.
Bottom line is people. This is all about people, protecting property, protecting lives. That's what the Red Cross does.
This is, again, really an important use case where you're actually dealing with lives of people. I think nothing is more important than a human life. So if by using this platform, Red Cross can save more people, I think it cannot be a better thing. The same thing happened in Sendai. In fact, I don't know if you're aware, when the Thai floods happened, we have a google.org team which is working with the Thai government and Thai Navy around evacuation of people. And the same thing in Sendai, what had happened was when the tsunami came, so we had satellite pictures, and so did Japanese government have satellite images on how was how was the geography before the tsunami and what was the cause of devastation. So we were constantly clicking various satellite images, and we had put it on portable devices which were given to the evacuation team, and when they were there in Sendai evacuating, they were actually using it and saving more people. So I think it's really amazing and really powerful depending upon the kind of situation you are in. One of the things which the lady talked about here was a common operating picture, which is a cross-functional thing. Now, if you are a conglomerate with different companies, or if you're a company with obviously different groups, you can collaborate a lot of information, which Anish talked about. So there can be a lot of collaboration, like finance department will have some data, sales department will have some data, HR department will have another data. You can put all this data on this mapping platform and create 10, 20, 50 applications which can then be used by different departments, and you can have all the controls defined. So I think, again, it's quite important to have such kind of platforms. And in the end, I talked about, this is actually Ricky Kapoor in San Francisco. Isn't it you? No, it's so we are recruiting visionaries, visionaries in the form of customers like yourselves. There is only limited application that can be developed, within Google, or there's only certain set of people that we have, but it's customers like you who have developed these phenomenal applications. So I really invite all of you to start thinking about mapping platform. It can really either help you increase the revenue or help you save a lot of money. So with that, I would now like to invite our sales engineer, Richard Coombs, and he's going to walk you through certain really amazing use cases. Thanks.
Sawadee krap. So we saw before that you're all familiar with Google Maps and Google Earth, and that's a great thing to hear. But I'm guessing that that's more in your personal lives, in your everyday lives. So what I'd like to do is spend some time and share with you how you can use the same tools and other tools in our Geo platform, how you can use the same technology, but in your business lives, so you can get more insight into how your businesses work. This is really broken down into 3 areas. First, making better decisions. By taking the data that you already have in your business and unlocking its potential, seeing new patterns in that data helps you make better decisions. Secondly is optimizing part of your business and making it as efficient as possible. I'll touch on examples on how you can actually understand your data to help optimize parts of your business. And lastly is engaging with your users. So maps is a very good way of understanding data, and this can be applied to up at the executive level and to maybe a new joiner who's working out in the field. So we've got some CSAT data, customer satisfaction scores. Simple, 1 to 5, how happy was a customer with the service that my organization is providing. You might have other information like value or revenue generated from a customer. And this can all be pulled in from lots of different systems. You then can create charts and graphs and dashboards that show you the health of your business. So nothing revolutionary here. But there's data, within data, there's probably 80% of data has a location component to it. By taking the same set of data and looking at it in a different way, you can actually see patterns in it that you might not otherwise be aware of. So if I switch to the map, let me just refresh. Okay, so if I take that same exact set of data, and here I am plotting it on a map. So what we're seeing here is 5 regions within central Bangkok. So these are the regions that how my business classifies these territories. And I'm color coding this data. So I've taken those customer satisfaction scores. I've said, right, the green ones are ranked the highest. Yellow, okay, we could do better. And red, we really need to focus on. So by looking at this geographically, I've actually can see how they're distributed and understand patterns in them. This, to me, tells me I've got some issues that I need to resolve with how I'm doing my, in this example, deliveries. This can really be applied to a number of different businesses. It could be transactions from a bank. It could be service usage within a utility company. So overlaying your data on a map and looking at it from a geographic context is a great insight. And our brains are actually wired to pick out patterns in huge amounts of data very, very quickly. So compare that to looking at a spreadsheet or a table of data. It allows you to understand it very quickly. So I can still click on these points and find out, right, well, my customer response time there was very low, which is probably why the satisfaction was low. But now that I've identified areas that I need to focus on, I need to start asking the question, why do I have problems in these areas? So in this territory, looks like I have maybe 1 or 2 green icons, green markers. So maybe it's an employee issue. Could be a new employee who doesn't understand how to interact with the customers well enough, or is new to the area and doesn't understand how to get there. We also look here at, we've got a cluster of bad scores. So we can use other information that Google provides to help augment the data that you have. I'll touch on that again in a little bit. So what we have here is actually a relatively small amount of data. If you've got a larger amount of data, it might be harder to pick out the patterns in it. So another way that we can visualize the data is using something called a heat map. A heat map is, it shows a continuous area, but with density. So it's very good at showing hotspots of data. And when you're overlaying your information, you can actually provide different weighting or different preferences to certain values. So if, for example, this was revenue data or transaction data, not only would it show the number of transactions, but you can provide different weighting to the amount of that transaction. So you can see areas that you need to focus on first. So if we go back to looking at this view, I'd like to touch on a few aspects of what we're seeing up here in the map itself. So firstly, the map is actually, as you notice, in Thai. So Google Maps now actually supports, I think, just over 50 languages, and we're always increasing that. So you can customize the map specific to your users. We've obviously got satellite view as well, so if your application is more applicable to look at satellite imagery, that's no problem. But if I want to try and start answering questions around why I have problems in my customer satisfaction, I want to look in this area. So I'll use the places, actually just start typing in the Intercontinental because I know it's in that area. Very quickly I can dive into this area. So I think, okay, what is causing the issue here? Let's look at it from a traffic perspective. So hypothesis is this customer satisfaction is low due to slow response times. So if I've got my workforce either doing deliveries or scheduled maintenance work, if they're not getting there on time, customer satisfaction is going to be low. So here we're providing real-time traffic data provided by Google. And you could then look at this throughout the day and start understanding the times of your delivery you might need to change in order to avoid heavy traffic flows. Another tool you can use is Street View. So here I can take what we call a pegman, drop him onto the map, and have a 360-degree panorama of the area where you dropped him. Now, one thing that jumps straight to my mind here is there's nowhere to park. So if you need to do a very quick drop-off delivery or pick up a package, how are you going to leave your vehicle unattended when there's nowhere to stop or nowhere to park? So you can use this information to plan better ahead of time, or maybe give yourself longer in order to make sure you're parking somewhere and still have time to get to the customer on time. So the last thing I'll point out on the map is we've actually done what we call a visual refresh of how our map looks fairly recently. So we've changed the colors slightly, changed the font to make the map more visually appealing. But this particular map style is actually designed for navigation, helping people figure out where they are. But if you're overlaying your customer data on top of that, and you want to see that data in a more prominent way, you actually have complete control over the style of your map. So I've set a map style here to really subdue the background colors. So this is fairly simplistic. I've just turned the colors down. But you can actually turn some of the features on and off as well. So I might want to get rid of labels. I'm not interested in parks or the major highways. Completely up to you. So this is good for showcasing the data that you're adding to the map on top. But also if you're showing this in a public forum and you want to customize those colors to match your company's brand, you can also do that as well. Okay. So now that we have identified we have an issue with our map, with our data. Customer satisfaction is low in 2 regions. Now we need to look at how we can resolve that problem and optimize the business to address that. So Pankaj mentioned earlier we have a product called Google Maps Coordinate. So Google has many solutions to help you track devices, whether it's a smartphone or sophisticated in-vehicle GPS devices. So what Maps Coordinate does, it's a workforce management tool based on a smartphone and a browser. So what we're seeing here is I have a real-time view of where all my workers are. So I've created a team. Members of my team have this application on their smartphones and they're logged in. So at any given point in time, I can see where they are. So I've got colleagues up in Hong Kong, down in Singapore, and then several colleagues obviously with us here in the room. So this is great from a real-time perspective and to be able to react to situations on the fly. If I just click on myself, so here I can see where I currently am located. So if you're in a central dispatch in headquarters mode, you can see where each worker is. I could start a hangout with a particular worker. So using the same technology that you saw earlier from Anish and Zach, you can do a video conference with a worker while they're out in the field. What this tool is great with is it's also generating location intelligence data. So I had this turned on yesterday when I was arriving into Bangkok. Set my zoom level. So here you can see the path that I took traveling from the airport into the city center. And down here I've actually got a time slider. So as I go through the day, and you'll see me start to move, there I am traveling along. I then come to the hotel. I wait for a while, drop off my bag, and then head to my first meeting, and then head back to the hotel. So you can actually take this data and use it in an intelligent way. Say you need to be better at predicting fuel consumption. Based on location history information, you can better understand how far are each of your employees traveling, therefore what's your fuel consumption going to be like, so you can better estimate your costs. The important aspect of Coordinate is jobs, assigning jobs to your mobile workforce. So what we can see here is I've got several jobs already loaded into the system. They're color coordinated, so we can see which ones have already been assigned to my workers, which ones have already been accepted, and we can see this red one here, someone has already checked in and has started that job. We can see job history as well. So if I go back, I think to Monday, there we'll see a list of jobs. So again, we're creating information that can be fed back into the business to help make better decisions. So what's the average length of time it takes to complete a job? What's the spatial distribution of my jobs? Again, this can be fed back into my overview map that we saw earlier. So if I want to add a job, I can come in here. I'll give a job title of Delivery 1234, not particularly exciting. So what about location? Here we're using, again, the power of the data that Google provides that you can make use of. Here I'll say I want to make a delivery to Central World Plaza, which is just over the road. So that has added a location to the map. I know that this particular location, it's not going to be at the front door of Central Plaza. This needs to be in the underground car park in the loading bay. So because I have experience of delivering to this customer before, but I know my colleague is new and doesn't have this experience yet, I can pick this marker up and drag it to the right location. I might not be quite sure where that location is. I think I'm right. But again, I can use the pegman, drop them down there. Sure enough, there's a location. Again, I can pick that marker up and say, that's the exact location you need to get to in the underground car park. Just turn my phone back on. Okay, so I'll cancel out of that, but you can assign it to a worker live, or you can schedule it for a future time. I've already got a set of jobs already set up here. So this particular one, I've already accepted it. So what I'll do now is switch to a view of showing the screen on my mobile phone. I'll fire up Coordinate. There you can see I'm next to a bunch of my colleagues here in the hotel. So here I could also have a look at my teammates, click on one of them, see where they are. Maybe we want to grab lunch together or something. But the main aspect is around the jobs. So here I have the list of jobs that have been assigned to me as a mobile worker. I've already accepted this one, so I better get on with it. So any information that I put into this system is fed back into the central dispatcher view that you're seeing behind my mobile screen in a live way. So I can check into that job. I can update the job by providing what the customer name is. I know it's not hello, but there we go. Update the job. But what I'm most interested in is I want to capture customer satisfaction while my mobile worker is out actually engaging with the customer. I don't want to have to do this as a process after the fact, which is going to take more time and energy. So here what I've done is linked a form directly with Coordinate. So once I've gone to my customer, I've done my delivery, I provided the maintenance or whatever service that I'm doing, I can then hand them this mobile device and say, can you please fill this form in for me? And I'm getting real-time data and real-time feedback. So here, if I just switch behind. So as I say yes, again, I'm quite biased, same as Zach. I think the service has been excellent today. I'll submit that. That will then be submitted. Now you've just hopefully seen I've added another record into my spreadsheet. So we can get this out to all of the mobile workers. Then we've got live information coming back, more information being added. So you can see more and more customer satisfaction surveys being added here. So what we can do is now go back to this map. We can now see live customer satisfaction coming in. So here you'll see, as my workforce are out in the field, we can see green circles and red circles, and this will be adding to the heat map. So we can have this up on the screen in the office to see real-time the health of the business. You know, are our customers happy today, which is the important thing. So not only does this show specific points and specific customer satisfaction, as a manager, I might want to look at things from across the region, across all of my territories, not just individual points. So here what we're doing, we're taking that information and we're aggregating it at a spatial level. So we've got our different regional polygons drawn here. I can click on one of these and see, what's customer satisfaction in this particular use case been like over the past few months. So this can link through to other back-end systems and use the map as that visual dashboard, or embed a map into your existing dashboards to help provide that location context. So in terms of then, what happens if we have new customers? We want to make sure if we get new, very important customers that we set expectations right and we plan accordingly. So if I've got a set of new customers overlaid then with where my territories are, I know if it falls within a territory that has an underperforming employee who's not doing deliveries the way he should be, then we need to provide more education. So we're tailoring the business specific. So in this example, let's say we've got a new customer here at Intercontinental Hotel. An employee has been here in the past. We've got a new employee coming here who doesn't know what the room is that he should be in or the situation he's going to find on site. Because he's been using a mobile phone, he can do data capture. So one of the things I did earlier was, again, use my phone, took a quick 360-degree panorama shot, uploaded it into the system. So this is what the room looked like before all of you arrived this afternoon. So it gives you a behind-the-curtain view of what the room looked like and what the situation me as an employee is going to face once I arrive on site. Help me be better prepared. So that's the end of the demo I'd like to show, but just to recap, we've covered not only getting a system up and running completely in the cloud very, very quickly and easily, but it really has allowed us to optimize the way we're working. We've done that by taking the data that we currently have and augmenting that not only with Google's data, but feeding data that we're creating live and feeding that back into the system to improve the efficiency and the overall bottom line of our business. Thank you very much.